everyone, it is Jess here. Today I am finally doing my December of 2018 reading wrap up. I'm so sorry it has taken me so long to get this up. I was already kind of behind on doing it, and then I filmed it, and then I had technical difficulties in which for some reason my microphone decided to buzz incessantly through like everything that I had filmed that day, and I just couldn't edit that and put that on the internet because that was annoying as heck. So the video is finally here though, and let's just jump into talking about all my reads because I read quite a few interesting fun things. The first book that I completed in the month of December was Maggie Stiefvater's Blue Lily Lily Blue, which is the third book in the Raven Cycle series. Because it's the third book, I'm not going to summarize it for spoiler purposes. This particular book had some really cool things that I loved about it. Other than the things that I've loved before, of course I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing style, and I really like how she does the world building in this, and the world building got even cooler in this one because there were just a lot of things that were revealed or found or had like lots of little surprises with them. And also I think this book, world building wise, has some very cool things on showing how each character in like the main group plays a very important part in the story and propelling the story. So I thought that was really excellent. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this particular one were all the new characters. There are several new characters that are introduced. Some of them are villainous ones, and I think the villainous ones were the most interesting villains because they had a lot of interesting idiosyncrasies. I also liked what all the new characters did for both sort of the ongoing plot lines that are going on, because there's like two main plot lines running at the same time in this series, and it really did add something to both of those storylines. I also enjoyed that this book is more of a blue featured book. I feel like the other books were mostly focused on the boys, which they kind of had to be, and it actually works really well that they are. But this one's like where you get to learn more about Blue and like her personality and things like that. Not that you didn't know her before, but you learn more. I really enjoyed the dialogue and the character dynamics in this book. It made me laugh a lot because now all the main characters have gotten to know each other really well and like know all the things that they can like poke fun at about each other. So those things were quite fun moments, and they really did bring a nice lightness to this book because I feel like it could have gotten super dark, because actually there's a lot of dark stuff that's going on in this. The thing that people don't tell you about the Raven Cycle books is that they're actually quite dark, creepy, if you will. Like, you know that they're going to be a little weird, but they're creepy. And this one was particularly unsettling to me because there's a lot of like going into caves. I hate caves, people. Like, I had some like, I don't know, not so great experiences in caves during like school trips or like Girl Scout trips or whatnot as a kid. And so I'm like, y'all, why are you going in a cave? I hate it. But I love that it's exciting, but I also hate it. Totally adored this book, and I gave this one 5 stars. I decided to complete the Raven Cycle series by reading the final book, The Raven King. Yet again, not gonna summarize because spoilers. This was a pretty excellent closure to this series. There's a lot of elements in this book, and it could have, in theory, if it hadn't been written right, gone really, really awry just because of the sole amount of just elements and things that need to be closed up in this. And I think it was really well closed off. Everything really fit together in a nice way. And I also like the ideas that this book explored about the characters and where they were like emotionally, and how they learned things about themselves, and how they learned like things can like be different than you plan, and that's fine. So I really liked sort of the general lessons of the book for the characters. I feel like a lot of my thoughts on this one were ones that sort of rolled over from the third book. So I feel like I'm just going to kind of leave my thoughts at that because there's not much more that I can chat about this book without being spoilery, I feel like. But all that being said, I also really loved this book and I gave this one 5 stars as well. I gave every single book in the series 5 stars. I feel like the quality is really consistent across all 4 books and I just enjoyed them like immensely, and it's not often that every single book in a series gets 5 stars from me, so go for that. Highly recommend these if it sounds like something that you would enjoy. Next, I completed volume 1 of Attack on Titan. This is a manga that is set in a post-apocalyptic future where these large humanoid sort of beings called Titans have basically been attacking humanity for many, many years. And the humans don't necessarily know what their agenda is or why they are doing this. Something that I discovered, because even though I read manga previous to 2018, I didn't read as much manga as I did in 2018 and try as much manga. So I think because I tried more manga, I had like a lot more to like compare manga to, like different manga styles too. And I discovered that there are some mangas where the first volume of them is kind of like the pilot of a TV show. So when you watch a pilot of a TV show, you're kind of just getting a taste of what the world and the characters are going to be like. You have to like go past the pilot of the show to really like grow endeared to the world and the characters. And this is the case with Attack on Titan. To me, I feel like possibly if I continue on with this series, I might get more connection with it. But in this first one, I just got like the little taste of what it was going to be like. Now, that kind of kept me from like loving it. I still really liked it and found it enjoyable, and it's an incredibly fast read, so I definitely think I get why it's very popular. I will say that the story is more plot driven as opposed to character driven, and I'm somebody that enjoys character driven stories a little bit more than plot driven stories, so I felt like I couldn't really connect with the characters the way I wanted to. But that could change if I decide to read more of it. The plot in this is really strong. It propels extremely well. There's always something interesting happening. I became very interested in the motivations of why the Titans were doing what they're doing. So I definitely would like to know more about that. Part of why I maybe didn't get to know the characters as much as I wanted to could be just because there was so much happening in the plot that I don't even think the characters had a chance to process their thoughts and feelings on everything. And so maybe it was kind of good that they didn't pause and like really delve deep into the characters right off at the bat in this first volume. So it could have actually been a good thing. I don't know. We'll see. So I am intrigued to read more of Attack on Titan. I don't think I'm going to try to read it immediately. I think it's something that I'm going to actually like reread the first volume and like some volumes afterwards. And there are also some manga that I want to like complete more than this one. But I do think that it's a good one and I probably will pick it up again eventually. So I gave this one 4 stars. And I completed The Runaways Deluxe Volume 2. This collects issues 1 through 12 and also a X-Men crossover issue of what I believe is like the second run of the Runaways comic. First volume was basically about a group of kids that went on the run because they realized all their parents were supervillains. Now they're still kind of on the run because they are not wanting to live in foster homes. So they're still runaways, and then there's also some other characters that kind of join in that are also runaways in their way as well. I did really enjoy this and think that it was a very fun read, but I do think that I had a couple small tiny qualms with it. The first qualm that I had with it is that it didn't have as cohesive as a story as the first volume did. The first volume had a very defined beginning and middle and end because it had an overarching plot, and that was what I loved most about the first volume, and I kind of wanted that going into this second one, and I didn't really get that. I feel like it was more like a lot of small stories that were interconnected, which is fine. Now, in hindsight, I do realize that part of why it has that feeling is because it's only one half of the second run. The second run was also continued into the third volume, which I also read. So what I basically was reading was the setup section of the story, and so that's why it didn't seem as cohesive, but I still feel like it doesn't have like as much of an overarching plot. I did not really enjoy the X-Men crossover issue. I just find that things like that are very silly. It had no point in there, it was just there to be there. It didn't service the story at all, and the dialogue in it was kind of dumb to me, and I just didn't really enjoy it. But regardless of my qualms with this, I still think it was a really fun, well done read for what it was. I still really loved the characters. I also really enjoyed the new characters that were introduced to it. I think they fit really well into the story. I think the dialogue was amusing and witty. I also quite like the pop culture references that are thrown in there because they're always a kick. I do think some of the ways they did cross over, other than the X-Men crossover, but some of the other things that they crossed over in terms of like Marvel storylines were very fun and well done in there. So it is a really enjoyable read despite my qualms, and I decided to give this one 4 stars. I thought I should, during the holiday season, squeeze in a Christmas book, so I decided to read The Christmas Shoes by Donna Van Leer. This is the first book in the Christmas Hope series, and it is a story that's really 2 stories. So the first plot is about a man who is a lawyer who has become so invested in his work life that he has basically lost sight of becoming invested in his family, his wife, and his children. The other story is sort of focused on a little boy, but it is also focused on that little boy's family, and basically the boy's mother is going to die of cancer, and that family has become really bonded and really invested in each other because of that situation. And it's basically about the dichotomy of these 2 family lives, but also how these family lives can cross and how the people can learn something from each other. There were quite a few things that I really enjoyed about this book. I feel like it is definitely a Christmas story that is about teaching a lesson more than anything else. So maybe like the writing in it isn't like super beautiful, but it's not the type of story that needs to do that or needs to have like a bunch of character things in it, because it's just kind of meant to be a novella that gets to the point, tells you the story, you learn the Christmassy lesson at the end of it. And those can be really kind of just fun, quick reads during the holiday season. I will say that this is definitely more of a bittersweet read. It has some happy, wonderful moments, but it also has some sad moments, and I think people should know that going into the story. But one thing that I really liked about the story was how the 2 sort of family stories cross over, which I won't tell you, but I really liked how that turned out, and I thought that was a really nice, like, small detail that really added to the overall idea of the story. The only thing that sort of affected my overall like enjoyment of this book had to do really with me personally, not the book itself, and it was really just my reading mood at the time. I think I really should have like read more of the summary or read the summary closer before picking this book up, because my soul was more in the mood for like happy, cute, cheesy kind of Christmas story, and this is not that. It definitely is a deeper book, as I've described, with bittersweet overtones. So I have to say that I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I possibly could have if I was in the mood for that kind of Christmassy story, because I was in the mood for like happy cuteness, and it had a great lesson that was happy and hopeful, but it wasn't happy cuteness, borderline cheesiness. I listened to this in audiobook. It's a pretty well read audiobook. I think it's only like 3 hours long, so I listened to it on a short road trip that I was on and could complete it in like on the way back from where I had been, and it's definitely the kind of book that if you need something short to squeeze in your Christmas story for the year, this one is one to give a try. So I gave this one 4 stars. And I completed Runaways Volume 3, which collects issues 13 through 24, I believe, of the second run of Runaways. My general thought on this is that I enjoy it less than the first volume of Runaways, but it is definitely more enjoyable to me than the second volume. And part of that is, like I said previously, that it is the second half of the story. So it is a little bit more cohesive because the story is getting more of an arc at that point. And I do think that it also has a little bit more of a study on some of the emotional things that are going on in the lives of the characters, and it's very character driven, which I really enjoyed in this one. I still think that the first volume is like the best, most cohesive volume, but this one is probably like my second favorite of the Runaways deluxe volumes that I've read. So it gets extra points for that. Other than that, like all the general thoughts that I think on Runaways that I've mentioned on the second one that I really enjoyed were still there in this. There was only one thing that I didn't enjoy that much about this book, and yet again, it had to do with me, not the story so much. And it's the fact that something happens in the story that I just really didn't want to happen. Like, I understood why it happened and why it needed to be there and what it did for the plot in general, and I got it. I really did. I didn't like it. Like, my heart didn't like it. So that has nothing to do with the story in general. It's just my personal self having like emotional issues with what needed to happen in the story. And so I don't know if anybody has ever felt that when they've read a book or watched a TV show and you're just like, I just want to pretend that this event never happened, but the rest of it is good. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. We reach the final book read in December, also the final book read in 2018, and that is King Richard III by William Shakespeare. This is, of course, a play about Richard III and how he does a violent climb to the English throne by doing anything to get it. And by anything, I mean anything. He's a little bit of a sociopath, but you know, what can we say? He just is. It just is what it is. Let's do a happy dance, because I have finally completed my first historical play by William Shakespeare ever. Yes, I went many a year being very intimidated by the history plays, and I now realize that I didn't need to be intimidated by them at all. My reasons for being intimidated were kind of silly. First one was because I think everybody in history has like the same name. Like everybody's a Richard or a Henry or whatnot. Realized that I didn't need to worry about that because obviously they are referred to by their house or their last name. The other thing that I was worried about was not like understanding like the historical context, but I do tend to watch documentaries a lot, and that is like the thing that I watch to fall asleep is documentaries. So actually, before even choosing this play, I had watched quite a few documentaries on Richard III and or the War of the Roses. So to a certain extent, despite falling asleep through some of those documentaries, I did understand the historical context. Although I realized right before I was about to start reading the play that I was basically reading the War of the Roses like backwards. But, you know, why not just start at the end? Super lucked out because one of my favorite segments on PBS, Shakespeare Uncovered, did an episode on Richard III, so I got a really good summary of the play and also a cool analysis. So I was so ready to start this play, and I was very happy that I ended up really enjoying it. It's probably one of the most understandable Shakespeare plays that I've read in a long time. I think part of that is because nobody is going crazy, like in King Lear or something, where you have to like work through their crazy. I also have to say that it was probably more understandable because I believe that the 5 years that I've spent reading L'Amour to author have finally paid off. There were actually words in here that I understood without looking at their definition in the annotations because I've been reading L'Amour to author. Shakespeare is always going to be easy from now on. Character-wise, I really enjoyed just the psychology of all of the characters. I mean, of course, Richard, because he's like a very odd dude who's like, I'm telling you I'm evil, I'm gonna tell you all my evil plans, audience, and then I'm gonna like execute them, you're gonna get to see it, it's gonna be fun. And so that's kind of an interesting person to read about. But also I was very surprised by the female characters in this book. They have a lot of very interesting wordplay, and they're really very strong characters, and there are a lot more female characters in this play than I thought there would be, and I just thought that was a really great surprise in the play in general. Also, I think it's one of the most understandable political sort of dramas, because usually that's a thing that you know that I sometimes have trouble with, like grasping my hands on. And actually, I found it quite easy to grasp. Something about the structure of it just really worked for my brain. I tried a new edition of annotation, so I like to review those for you guys just in case you want to like try out Shakespeare and find the best annotated ones. I will say that I really enjoyed this Arden Shakespeare way that they approached the annotation. Now, I didn't get a chance because of time and I wanted to finish it before the end of the year to read this really long introduction, but there is a really long introduction that does, I believe, contain all the kind of historical background that you need to get into this. But actually, the way the actual play is annotated is really cool. I really like the layout. It has the dialogue of the play here, and then it has all of them below. Usually annotated editions have them on the side, but I think it really works to have them below because it kind of carries your eye down really easily to find it. And also it kind of allows more space for the annotation, which is very good in this edition because it does do a lot more than some annotated things. Usually they just do unfamiliar words, which this one does, but it also does some really good historical context things that tell you like more about in history what was going on. It also kind of tells you like the things that are fictionalized in this. Even back in the day, they were fictionalizing elements of history and moving things around and things like that. So it tells you which things are those things in this. There are quite a few annotations on what things are from the quarto or the folio editions of Shakespeare if you need to know those things. I didn't read those a lot because I kind of didn't really care. I just wanted to read the play on the page. But if you need that for school or something like that, it is in there. I think this might end up being the second favorite type of annotated edition of all the ones that I've tried so far. My first one is probably the Cliff's Note Completes edition because they do have like the little chats at the end of each act about what happened in the act, but they don't have every Shakespearean play in those. So I think the next one I would pick up would be the Arden Shakespeare one, just because I really like how the structure of the annotations is. And they are also really easy to get used on Amazon. I got this one used on Amazon. The hilarious thing about it, though, is that the person that apparently previously had it wrote really funny notes in it. And my favorite one is where it like just goes WTF with a 2 question marks. Really enjoyed this play. I think the only thing that I would say about this is I kind of do want to watch the play in a movie or live at some point. I think there are a lot of things in here that are definitely going to come across better actually being said by an actor or seeing a human doing the action of what is being told in this. And I think that's just the case with any play, but I feel like in particular with this play, I feel that. But as a story and as my first history play, I gave this one 5 stars. I'm also encouraged to read more of Shakespeare's history plays since I no longer feel that I need to be intimidated by them, though perhaps I will read them in chronological order of kings next time so that I won't be reading the end of the War of the Roses before I've read the beginning of it. That was my belated December wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing all my thoughts on all these books. I enjoyed telling you about them. Let me know what some of your favorite reads were from the month of December or the end of 2018 in the comments below. As an addition, I have also made a playlist for the Raven Cycle series. So if you are a fan of that book series, or you just like music in general and want to see like the type of music I listen to or the type of music that I think fits those books, I will link you to my Spotify playlist of that in the description. That is it for today, my fabulous people. I will see you all soon. Bye!